Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello.
Now we have a couple of stories. One of them is humongous in regards to Diablo 4 being real, but let's also talk about Call of Duty first, and we'll get to the whole Diablo thing.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, Call of Duty's out this Friday, I guess, so that's the most important.
A little bit of a thing.
It is a little bit of a thing. I'm looking forward to it, Scott. I'm really
too.
excited, despite, I kind of feel conflicted because we have made a lot of videos about how bad the microtransaction system has been handled,
Yes.
And yet I'm trying to,
Just divorce
that from my actual excitement for the game, because it is coming, and this thing that you've got to tell me is making me a bit more excited.
This is just a small little thing to sort of lump in. The game seems to actually have split screen. It's although they haven't really put that out as part of the marketing. Even in the various new trailers, it hasn't really been there. Apparently, it was discussed in one part of Game Informer's overall coverage. Totally missed it. I don't know if you guys have seen that or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of rogue copies of Modern Warfare out there now that people have been picking up from stores that have broken embargo.
Yeah.
But on Activision side or on Infinity Ward's side, they've put a password on the launch screen, on the main screen. So even if you get it early, you can't play it until Friday or midnight Thursday night. But yeah, so the split screen thing comes from people looking at the back of the boxes that are out there and realizing that it does say split screen to people, which is weird because I guess in this regard, you're assuming it'll be the Spec Ops mode will be split screen.
Well, I think it might be sort of the entirety of the game across the board, because the previous games have had multiplayer support for split screen, but I imagine you can't have Spec Ops, you can't bring that back and then just sort of say, well, it's only online, you can't play it locally with your friends. That would absolutely suck, because I have fond memories playing Spec Ops split screen and Call of Duty split screen as a whole. Black Ops 4 had it for Blackout, which I thought was really cool.
Yes.
It looked like ass.
It did a bit.
But it was enjoyable to play with some friends.
It's weird because as much as Call of Duty is this massive behemoth of online multiplayer, I do like a good old split screen local sesh thing. And that's what I used to do in the original Modern Warfare and everything. And I think that it's been ages since we've had a 4-way split screen Call of Duty game. And this could have been it. This could have been the whole return to form thing. But at least as far as the back of the box quotes go, or details go for the rogue copies that are out there, it seems like it's just a 2-way split screen thing.
Yes.
And assumedly for Spec Ops, because why would you only have a 2-way split screen if it was multiplayer?
Well, I don't know. I want the 4-player split screen thing to come back. Because I remember when Black Ops, I think it was 3, made a big deal about the entire campaign could be played between like 4 players. And that was awesome. But the industry as a whole has kind of gone back and forward on split screen. For a time, it seemed like it was completely dead when games that helped, usher it in and make it so popular, like Halo, were just completely eliminated.
Halo 5 just couldn't be bothered.
But now it's coming back. And it is it's not my split screen. I don't like the black bar, Scott. I don't like how sort of low quality it is, but if it's an option between that version of it and not having it, I'll choose that version every single time.
I hope if this is something wider than just the Spec Ops mode, or obviously, assuming it will be in the Spec Ops thing, then at least hopefully they do it well, because Borderlands 3 split screen just killed the game. Like, that thing reduces its frame rate to literally like 2 frames a second. It's terrible. Me and Jules tried to play it. Horrific.
Interesting. When you said killed the game, I thought you meant like in a sick way, like, whoa, he killed the game. And I thought, what?
No, sadly there was no. The brutals, but no, it didn't do very well. I guess like trying to render a game twice can sometimes just go completely the other way, but I have faith in Infinity Ward. So the biggest news story is that Diablo 4 is real, Josh.
What?
Do you want some Diablo 4?
Yes.
Good, me too. Okay, so we'll cover some of the things that are out there, and then we can talk about the reality of what it means for someone like Blizzard in their current position to finally deliver something that might actually put a smile on your face and not result in some middle fingers.
Maybe, but I remember the launch of Diablo 3, Scott, is all I'm saying, so I'm excited for it. I'm excited for a proper sequel.
The launch of Diablo 3 was when all the servers went down.
When it all went down, we had the marketplace that had to be patched out. I'm just saying, the game was exciting and kind of good, but also it took a long time to get really solid, but...
So
tell me more.
This thing comes from a German magazine called GameStar that have managed to get the story on this new art book that is going to be put out after BlizzCon. BlizzCon's on the November the 1st and 2nd, and they sort of had this new issue that they're going to be releasing after that, or alongside that, but the art book's coming out later or whatever. Basically, there's an advert in this magazine that has a quote which says that the book will feature over 500 artworks from Diablo, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and Diablo 4. This book features many noteworthy artworks created by Blizzard Entertainment, and it's given a generation of fans everlasting nightmares. And so which is lols in the sort of the way that they never knew that was going to come true. But yeah, so the way that they're talking about Diablo 4, it has been in development for a long time. Apparently there was a whole version of it that was going to be like a Dark Souls type game, and it got canned, and then apparently they were about to release or announce Diablo 4 last year, and they just didn't. They didn't think it was in enough of a state to say that it was coming. coming. Obviously went down the Doom Immortal route, which annoyed everybody and was one of the worst press conferences in quite some time.
Yeah, that was the biggest sort of Blizzard stink in a long time that they've just kind of doubled down on ever since.
A little bit. So the final thing in terms of info to know is that there's also this Twitter account called Metro_OW that seems to usually reveal stuff ahead of time. They also tweeted out saying Diablo 4 is going to be announced at BlizzCon, and also that there'll be a Diablo 2 remaster. Which, if you're going to try and get back in the fans' good books, it would be that, wouldn't it?
That's what I want. Oh man, see, I never properly got into Diablo 3. I know it's a really good game. I know Rach absolutely loves it. But for me, it was Diablo 2 on PC. The only PC game I've ever really ever played. I had a long weekend spent playing that title back in the day on my own because I had no one else to play with. My computer was crap.
Good. Yes. Apparently Diablo 4 is going to follow in the same vein as Diablo 2 in terms of the art style. They said they want to remove some of the... This is just based on the other rumours and leaks that are out there. Apparently the sort of overall cartoony look of Diablo 3 is mostly going to go away, and it'll be like a return to Diablo 2, which I guess would make sense if you're going to then put a remaster out of that game. Do you tend to prefer that look as opposed to the way 3 went?
A little bit, to be fair, because although 3 is very sort of visually kind of interesting, it's very colourful, it's chunky. Yeah, for me, it's the kind of weird, almost gritty style of 2 that I really gravitated towards as a younger man. I'm not sure what I'll think of it now. If it's too throwback, then it might be bad, but at the same time, it's a cool, interesting idea.
Yeah, I've never played 2. I came in on 3. I've got like 4 copies of 3. I'm on record as not loving Diablo. I just don't. I try to, whatever. But the general setup of that game I love in theory, and I think that I'm curious with Diablo 4 whether any of those other ideas of reframing the combat or whatever come into 4, or whether at this point, especially after last year, they just double down on the Diablo formula that everyone knows and loves.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I feel like that's exactly what they're going to do. Blizzard need a win, and they've already sort of canned a version of Diablo 4 that's more potentially experimental. So I feel like this will be a kind of back to basics thing, especially because there were Overwatch 2 rumors a few months ago, maybe even at the end of last year. I think it was in a Kotaku report that was saying that is going to go down a more experimental route and have more PvE elements. Right. So they might be pushing out that sequel that's kind of trying to, you know, push the boundaries a little bit within that franchise, whereas Diablo 4 is the safer bet because, you know, the Diablo franchise after, was it Immortal?
I think it's called Immortal, yeah, the mobile one.
After that was announced and caused such a storm last year, I feel like this is the win.
This is I mean, like I said, the situation that Blizzard are in, obviously all the Hong Kong stuff is still unfolding. They haven't really made any more additional official comments other than just trying to double down on their general policies. They have banned other players since then. Other players obviously came out and tried to support Hong Kong and the ongoing thing with them in China. And just the way that Blizzard are at the minute, I think there's a way for them to deliver a conference that is just, by the way, we're a game company, here's some games that we do, and the political spectrum is kind of just on the side and we'll deal with that stuff later. But I also wonder, like, just how much of a fan interaction thing they're going to have. Are they going to open up the floor, let people ask questions? Is the red shirt guy going to be there?
I'd be crapping my pants, to be fair, Scott. After the last BlizzCon and coming in after all of this Hong Kong stuff, it's not a good atmosphere to hold a big, you know, conference in, especially when you're going to announce a big game like this, because unless it's exactly what fans want, the sort of, you know, kind of contempt or distrust is already there enough that if it's a little bit off, I feel like it's just going to kick up into a big old controversy.
I think this time last year, if they'd busted out Diablo 4 Souls style, I remember a lot of the reaction to that online was like, oh god, it's not Diablo. And I'm curious. I want to have faith in Blizzard. At this point, Blizzard are so many different studios and they have so many different genres under their wing, from, you know, obviously like StarCraft to Overwatch all the way back to Diablo. And it makes me curious. I want them to try new things. But I think if you were, like you said, if you were them, if you're, you know, proverbially crapping your pantaloons, at some point you're just going to want an easy win. You're going to want the thing that's going to work. And to some degree, it's emblematic of this generation. It'll just be, let's just re-execute on the same formula again. Do you think that'll go down well, though?
I don't know. Maybe, because it has been so long since Diablo 3, and if they are sort of, like you said, cribbing on the Diablo 2 style and sort of leaning on that nostalgia, it probably would win over fans. But I'm saying that not as a diehard Diablo fan, so I'm not exactly in that community and cannot speak for everyone, but it does feel like with the remaster of that second game, they are sort of banking, or at least hopefully relying on the sort of goodwill people have for the franchise's history and hoping to capitalize on that going forward. Doing a Bethesda, yeah. Well, hopefully not as bad as Bethesda's been doing it recently, but...
I think another thing with Diablo as well is that it was one of the original big, like, not looter shooters, but looter-fueled games. Like that and Borderlands was sort of like the two major franchises that got that stuff off the ground before every other game started cribbing it across this generation. Obviously, like Borderlands 3, it sat out the majority of this generation, only to come back and do more of that stuff the way it always did. I really like Borderlands 3, but it is very much more Borderlands. And I wonder with Diablo, with such a crowded market and such a crowded like loot space, can they do like they try and do something innovative? Do they just stick to their guns? Like, does it make it feel more outdated, or is it like, well, this is the franchise that does it? So
well, let me ask you, Scott Tilford, because you, as someone who did not like Diablo 3, what would it take for you to get back in? Because I'm sure Blizzard is looking at this, and although the Diablo install base already and the fan base will be enough to support it, they're a company at the end of the day. They're a company that's in partnership with Activision, and they're going to want to branch out. Like, as sad as it is, they're going to want to get in players like you or me who hasn't played it in a long time, and sort of bring them in. That could mean going down a more mainstream route. Do you think they'll do that? And what would you like to see?
It's weird because I'm the anomaly, because the thing that I don't like about Diablo 3 is core to what it is. I didn't like the loot turnaround. I always felt like I couldn't build a class or build a particular build a bear, because if I do that, I'm just gonna swap out my helmet, my sword, my boots in the next like 10 seconds, and I was always rotating through stuff. I never really felt like I was having that much fun with the combat, and I just bounced off it. After a while, I was like, this is just a big old transient thing, and none of it means anything to me. But the thing is, I know that core loop is why it's so much fun. And I like the idea of a treadmill of constant stuff. But I think that for me, you would have to relax the turnaround a little bit and let me sort of invest in a character a bit and iterate over time, as opposed to kind of resetting big chunks of them over and over again, which is what Borderlands 3 got right.
I was just about to say, everything you just said there reminds me of sort of Borderlands and the way they treat loot, because I have a similar problem in that. In that game, it's great to have all these different guns, but I'm barely getting familiar with one by the time I'm onto the next like sort of new thing. But the interesting thing is that I remember that you didn't like that about Borderlands 2, but then when 3 came around, it sort of won you over a little bit.
3 doesn't just shower you with as much stuff. It's sort of like it doles it out a little bit more considerately, and you do get more time to just have fun with a certain weapon on a couple of missions before changing out to the next thing. It's more viable to stick with the gun that you have and re-roll different stats on it. I don't know if you could do that in the older games or whatever, but I felt like I had more of a connection with certain weapons, and I was holding on to them longer. I was ready to swap them out by the time I was going to something else. Which for me is the key in loot games. I don't just want infinite showerings of stuff. For me personally, I know that a lot of people love that stuff, and that's obviously core to why Diablo 3 is such a massive deal. But to bring it back around to Diablo 4, I'm just curious what they do, and I wonder how they even think of themselves in terms of being this big pioneering, loot-based game. If they're just like, what the hell do we even do? They obviously scrapped the big experiment they were going to do with the Dark Souls cross Diablo thing. For me, I'd be fine with a Diablo 4 that has a more considered sort of loop, and if they do a little bit more to the gameplay, so it's, I don't know, just tighten it up a little bit.
It's going to be interesting to see what people who are still playing Diablo 3, because I still have so many friends who are replaying that and keep jumping into that game years and years later and still love it
every lunchtime.
Exactly, and it's sort of, you've got that persistent sort of fan base there, but that means there is a certain sort of level of expectation going into 4 that it might just be sort of, it's tricky because it has to be familiar enough to get people to jump to the new game, but also interesting and new enough to make them not just want to stick with 3, the game that they've been investing in so many hours for so many years now.
Do you think that, just to sort of round this out, in terms of like the way that gamers are, we dart back and forward on different things as to what's preferable and what's despised in the moment kind of thing. Do you think if they just whack up the big Diablo 4 logo, they walk out, by the here's a gameplay demo, it's playable at the show, Diablo 4 is real, see you guys later, will that make everything all right again?
I don't think it'll make everything all right again. That might be what I do, because it's sort of, it's seeding the fact that everything might be all right again. I think if you come out and you try to do a proper big blowout, it has to be very, very good and confident. Otherwise, because of the entire sort of, atmosphere of Blizzard right now and everything that they've been doing and the controversies they've been causing, I feel like any one wrong move will just throw that into disarray. So potentially a tease now before everything sort of hopefully gets better in the future.
I hope that Red Shirt Man turns up. And I wonder if the security's been told to not put him in. If he tries to wander in to do one more sort of question, or if they push him away. But let us know what you think down in the comments below of your potential Diablo 4 and what you think about the idea of Modern Warfare getting split screen. For now though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.